Okay, so we are live. Let's play the intro,
Okay.
and then we're going to start talking, Fadi, because there's so much to talk about.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Bitcoin Takeover Podcast, the Bitcoin podcast for OGs and intermediaries. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and like this episode. Also, read the new BTCT KVR magazine. This episode is sponsored by Wasabi Wallet, Crypto Steel, Shop in a Bit, and Sato Dime. Thank you for listening.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover Podcast. This is season 14, episode 8, and this is a premiere from lots of points of view. It's the first time that this project gets promoted in a podcast. It's the first time when Fadi himself talks in a Bitcoin podcast, and it's super exciting to see that Taproot is getting more use cases and it's being used in ways in which it was promoted initially, because we always spoke about the privacy benefits of Taproot, but we haven't seen much of it. Fadi is a researcher who actually works in academia, and I was honored to be introduced to him by John Galt, whom I met at a conference last year. And there's so much to talk about this, and I'm very happy to have you, Fadi.
So thank you very much to inviting me here. So I'm very happy to be here. Thanks.
Right. So, Fadi, you are working on DMix, which is something which you researched at the academic level. You actually published a research paper about this.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that you work for a state-funded university in Italy,
Yeah.
and they're funding research into Bitcoin privacy.
So yeah, you're right. Like there is a little bit of irony in that, especially because it's funded by the state and by the EU, right? So
Oh, it's a PSYOP, right?
yeah, it's high up.
No,
And
PSYOP, psychological
PSYOP,
operation.
everything is, yeah, of course. Nah, I'm joking. Yeah, it's funded by them, but they give you some leeway, right? So as long as you're actually just doing research, is okay. So the actual part of doing the protocol itself is done outside the university. So I think I'm in the clear now.
Yeah, of course, you're not actually running DMix, you're only researching parts for
Exactly.
it. But before we get to that, let's introduce you a bit, because this is your first Bitcoin podcast. People don't really know who this Fadi guy is. So when did you get into Bitcoin? What's your story?
So I started to know about Bitcoin in like 2013, but like something that is against the state. I was pretty young. I didn't know much about, but I was intrigued, like decentralized money against the banks, etc. So I was very interested let's say, I was very interested. So I started studying that, but I was doing my university at the time. I was doing my bachelor degree, I think. Bachelor or master was between them. And yeah, I studied it and I tried to work on it. I published my thesis was on zero knowledge proof at the time, and I was interested in cryptography from the start. And then I also did a thesis in Bitcoin, but on the financial side. So I was working on the trading side, let's say. But then during my PhD, I had the opportunity to work on blockchain in general, but I did a lot of work on Bitcoin. And so yeah, this is basically my story around that. And now I finished my PhD. I'm a researcher at the university, but I'm a researcher at university, and I'm working on DMix as a side project, let's say. So
that's interesting. How hard was it for you to convince your supervisor to let you do something about Bitcoin? Because that was my struggle. That's why right now I'm a PhD dropout, because I was not able to convince anyone to do this. So how was it like? And also, what's the university? Because we haven't mentioned the name of it.
Oh yeah, the university is the University of Turin, which is in the north of Italy. Is a city in the north of Italy. Actually, it wasn't that difficult. My supervisor at the time is an awesome guy, so I was able to propose it as a stepping stone. So the PhD project, my PhD project, was on interoperability between blockchains. Okay. So a lot of protocols that I worked on were for like exchanging in a decentralized way from, let's say, Ethereum to Bitcoin, right? So this basically gave me a way to work on Bitcoin while saying that, yeah, I'm working on Ethereum, but yeah, somebody has to put money on Ethereum from Bitcoin. But on the other hand, I was actually doing the opposite by creating ways to put money from Ethereum to Bitcoin. And in order to do that, one stepping stone was actually DMix, which started as a way to create, let's say, it is a stepping stone for another protocol that I created during my academic years, which basically made the HTLC, the hash time lock contract, more multi-party, and in order to exchange things. But at the base of that, there is DMix. So I was able to convince my supervisor and saying, yeah, we do DMix, and then we do that. And so, yeah, this was basically the strategy in order to work on a mixer for Bitcoin.
So basically, you had to introduce the idea of working on multiple blockchains and focus on Ethereum, which apparently gets more, not necessarily more, but a higher approval rating in academia.
Yeah.
And after that, you basically switched into Bitcoin privacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I got to ask you this. You said that you were working on interoperability. And
I was
DMix
working.
was part of this mechanism. So basically, you're saying that privacy was an afterthought or a side effect of what you were developing?
So my idea was to work on privacy in general. But because at the university you cannot actually choose exactly on what you work on, you have to make some trade-off, right? So I wanted to work on privacy, and my supervisor wanted me to work on interoperability. So the compromise was, yeah, let's do some interoperability in a private way. And in order to do that, we actually had to lay some groundwork on the privacy side, right? So we, as I said before, DMix was for creating privacy inside one blockchain, okay? And actually, it's privacy, but it's privacy in the form of increasing fungibility of coins, right? So Bitcoin is not very fungible, and one way to make it more fungible is actually to use DMix. But the idea of DMix is that the people at the beginning of the protocol and the people at the end of the protocol are actually the same people. And so you change the addresses, you create unlinkability, but the people at the beginning and at the end are the same. If we want to do some interoperability, well, you can say that, yeah, the people at the beginning are different from the people at the end on one blockchain, on Bitcoin, while on the other blockchain, the people at the beginning are the same of the people at the end of the other chain. So you basically have an X, let's say. I don't know if it's clear. If not clear, I restart. So basically, I would say that it is the opposite. We started with privacy in mind in order to achieve privacy on a blockchain. And then we extended it to make it like an interoperable protocol, and so my supervisor was happy after that. And but yeah, it started as DMix is a protocol to obtain fungibility at the end of the day and privacy.
Yeah, I think at this point it's useful to show a screen with everything. I have this beautiful summary about DMix that you published about, or at least changed for the last time 3 months ago. And it has all the information that we're going to talk about. So I suppose it's useful for me to share my screen, and I just did.
Okay.
The people watching should be able to see this. So, what is DMix? How is it different from a CoinJoin? I think these are some of the first questions that pop in anyone's mind.
Yeah. So first of all, DMix as a protocol is a two transaction protocol. So we have one transaction, then another transaction. And the second transaction may be regarded as a CoinJoin, actually. So the difference is that we use CoinJoin as part of the second transaction. I cannot see your screen now.
No, I wanted people to see your face, so I'll be switching.
Yeah, so the second transaction of DMix is a CoinJoin, actually. And yeah, while the first transaction is more for coordination purposes for the people involved in this DMix. And like we know that CoinJoins generally have some kind of toxic outputs, which are the outputs that are different from the other outputs. And by design, DMix doesn't have these toxic outputs because in practice they are, let's say, removed in the first transaction. Yeah, so here you can see a general diagram of how DMix works. So it's a 3 phases protocol. There is some kind of information exchange, which is the first phase, and where people basically have to just work some technicalities like how much fees we will pay, what are the new addresses that we will receive funds in. And then we have the DMix transaction, which is the first transaction of the two. And it is some kind of coordination in the sense that people fund this DMix address that is controlled by all of them. And we can talk about it later with Taproot and Schnorr signatures and threshold signatures, etc. So this address is actually controlled by all the people involved, and it is always different. And it is the, let's say, the DMix address, let's call it like that, but it's always different for every group of people. And it is a normal address. So it's actually indistinguishable from other addresses on the blockchain. And the third phase, they use the funds sent to this address to create this CoinJoin and send multiple outputs in this transaction. So you achieve unlinkability because from the beginning to the end, you cannot reconstruct which address belonged to whom. And basically the reason why is the same as the reason from the normal CoinJoin, where every output is equal, but the toxic output, every output is equal, so you cannot reconstruct what was the input that created that output. So in a sense, you increase the anonymity set and of the coins. And so this is basically how it works and why it works.
So maybe that this is an oversimplification on my side, but basically what you created with DMix is a CoinJoin where you don't know the inputs and you can only see the outputs.
It depends on what you mean by you. I mean, like people have to write to sign the same transaction. So how threshold signature works is our aggregated signature. Basically, we have people that sign the transaction together, right? But differently from a multisig, you have only one signature, regardless of how many people are involved. Okay, so this is a bit of a simplification, but basically you have people that create one signature, regardless of how many people there are. And so you have a n of n multi-signature, but that creates just one signature. In order to do that, every party has to have the same message to sign. And the message here is basically the transaction. And in order to have the same transaction, they have to know the input of the other parties, which again, they don't know in real life, don't know because they can use Tor, etc., etc. They just know the input. And then they create multiple outputs in a deterministic way, which is why they can create this transaction, the same transaction at the end, and they just have to go online to sign this transaction together and publish on the blockchain. And one cool thing about Bitcoin is that because you have you have solved the double spend problem, right, on Bitcoin. So if I publish a transaction and you publish the second transaction will be just discard, and it's practically one of the features of Bitcoin. And this is cool because we are doing the protocol in a way that all parties will send the transaction to the blockchain. So you have no possibility of censoring at that level. And yeah, you know that the Bitcoin blockchain just will save on the blockchain only one of those transactions, but everybody will be able to send this transaction by how the protocol is done. And so there cannot be any censorship at that level. Okay, so yeah, but again, to answer your question, they actually see the input. They have to see the input.
Right. At this point, I have to acknowledge that there are two regular viewers in the chat. There's Silent Lamb, who says he's working on his swords. And there's also the creator of Wasabi Wallet, Nopara73, who's watching this. And I'm supposed to play an ad after 15 minutes. So let's play the ad for Wasabi Wallet, and then I'll be back with more questions about DMix.
Wasabi Wallet is unfairly priced Linux, as well as thousands of fresh new Bitcoins getting mixed every month. Wasabi makes use of the new generation Wasabi engine to create mega CoinJoins, thus mixing your Bitcoins with those of hundreds of other users. For amounts lower than 0.01 BTC and remixes, you pay no coordination fee. Even if you don't use CoinJoins, Wasabi Wallet has a native Tor integration and downloads block filters to help you keep your network level and public key privacy. Download Wasabi Wallet for free today at wasabiwallet.io and experience the future of Bitcoin privacy.
Okay, I guess this was a useful introduction into comparing DMix with something else that already exists on the market. You have these protocols for CoinJoin, ZeroLink, and Wasabi. How would you say that DMix is different, and how is it similar?
So, yeah, first of all, they are great protocols, and yeah, they are basically based on Chaumian CoinJoins, right? And again, we used CoinJoins, so there is the first similarity. But one difference is that we are trying to we are working on not use any leader, server, or coordinator. So Chaumian CoinJoins need a coordinator or a server, and this is some kind of centralization, right? It is a, let's say, non-custodial, trustless centralization point, in the sense that it's actually coordinated the transaction, but at the same time, it has the coordinator has some censorship possibilities, like just going offline, or not working anymore, or actively censoring transaction. And we are working on a different way. We assume our goal is not to use any leader, any coordination. And of course, there are trade-offs. But like, for example, we have 2 transactions instead of 1. But yeah, our main idea and our main goal is to remove the coordination, the coordinator completely. So yeah, I would say that this is the main difference between us and Chromium CoinJoins in general.
Yeah, something else which I wanted to ask is if DMix can be commodified in the sense that you create a service that people download, you collect a fee or something, and they run DMix without thinking about what happens in the background.
So this is the end goal, right? We want to create something that you can plug in a wallet, and you click a button and you demix your funds, right? And one way we are working on it is that our idea, of course, is to maintain a free software spirit, right? So everything will always be free software. And because you don't have any coordinator by design, you will always be able to create DMix by yourself. And so from a monetization point of view, one of the things we are working on is the output decomposition problem. So basically, every CoinJoin has this main thing of CoinJoin is that all the outputs are equal, and because of that, you are creating a bigger anonymity set for these coins, right? But you can also think about this in a different way. So you can actually ask yourself how many histories there can be when you see a transaction. So you see some inputs and some outputs, and you want to be able to maximize the possibility of linking the output with the input. Because if you maximize that, you have multiple possible histories, and so you cannot track the coins. And the easiest way and the most private way, actually, is to make all outputs equal. And this is why CoinJoins are done this way. On the other hand, you can achieve a comparable level of privacy, of fungibility, by maximizing these histories while having different outputs, different amounts in the outputs. And this is the output decomposition problem is basically stated as that, like how can we maximize the stories, the histories, the possible histories in a transaction, given inputs and outputs. And we are working on that. And right now, the research says that it's possible to have comparable or basically equal levels of history if you tweak the inputs and the outputs. To tweak inputs and the outputs means like adding inputs, adding outputs in a way that you maximize histories and have different amount of outputs. So the question then is, who will put these inputs? And one thing we are working on is to create a way for like a foundation or something. We don't know the legal details about that, but the idea is to create some kind of pool with some Bitcoin funds in order to help creating DMix transactions with different outputs. And this will has some financial benefits, which are obvious. Like if you don't have that much outputs, the transaction is smaller, and then it costs less. And for us, it's very important because we have 2 transactions. So if we can minimize the fees for each transaction, for us is better. But the other thing that you will achieve is that it's not obvious that it is a CoinJoin, right? So CoinJoin are basically flagged as CoinJoin, and they are refused by online exchanges sometimes, because you can see that something is a CoinJoin or not. And if we have all outputs that are different from each other, now this is not clearly a coin join, right? And for this reason, it will be much more difficult to discern if something is a coin join or not, or a DMix or not, because after sometimes I assume that if many people use use DMix, it will be possible to flag some couple of transactions as a DMix. But if we do this output, we solve this output decomposition problem and create a way with like a foundation or something, a pool, and we can tweak input and outputs, we will be able to like mask this thing, which is also a privacy enhancement for Bitcoin, because you have different things that behave like a coin join, but they are not. It's not easy to spot them, right? So yeah, this is what we are working on.
Another question about how DMix works concerns scalability. How many inputs and outputs can you have? Right now you have with Whirlpool 5 inputs, 5 outputs, and it presumes that you're going to keep on remixing to add. Mathematically, you can calculate your anonymity set. And you also have Wasabi, which does something different in the sense that you get 200, on average, 200 inputs, 200 outputs. It can be more or less because it does both divisions and consolidations in the output. And that one also has remixes that you can access without paying for a coordination fee. How big should we expect DMixes to be?
So from a technical point of view, the only limit is the maximum transaction size that we can have. So basically it depends on how many input, how many outputs, and you can have as much inputs as they are technically possible. So there is not a limit per se. In practice, there will always be a limit in popularity, because if we want to be as decentralized, there is a trade-off, right? Especially in the matching matching part of any protocol. So you may have maximum decentralization, but you have the discovery problem, so people cannot discover each other because it's very, very decentralized. Or you can have maximum centralization like TikTok. You have better discovery because that the algorithm behind that will match people. TikTok is basically video and person. The matching is video person. And we want to be as decentralized as possible. So I would say that the only problem is popularity. And from scalability, in the sense how fast it is, like we have 2 transactions, so I would expect that it would take like double time with respect to 1 transaction only. And on the other question about remixes, well, as of now, we are basically doing a coin join in the second transaction. So whatever is good for other coin joins like Wasabi and other privacy solutions based on coin joins, we also will encourage demixing. And from fees point of view, like having remixes that are free as in beer, it's more of a financial or legal thing. So if we have the pool that I talked before and like a foundation to manage that, we can offer like free DMix if you are remixing and things like that.
Okay, that's interesting to know that it can actually scale. And theoretically, if we can have larger transaction sizes, and that depends on the protocol rules, we could have blocks as large as a DMix or as large as a CoinJoin. And we get something like Monero, except that we don't have confidential transactions. So you can still see the amounts, but it's so much more private than it is today.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I agree with you. If we can have blocks that are basically just DMix, it would be awesome. I would say that you have solved a big part of the privacy side. As you mentioned, the outputs are there, but you have created basically unlinkability, so it's not that important right now. And because hiding the amounts, confidential transactions are heavier, right? So are heavier on the protocol and on the Bitcoin protocol. So it's always a trade-off. And if we can maximize that by maintaining the same protocol rules, it would be awesome. Also, DMix doesn't need any change in the protocol rules of Bitcoin. When we started, we are using threshold signatures, and at the beginning, we need Schnorr signatures that after Taproot, we have a Schnorr signature, and now we have, but also research is going forward, and we can obtain threshold signatures with ECDSA signatures, and therefore we can do that with both Schnorr and ECDSA. So this is a good thing, because also the kind of signatures that you are using are part of privacy and fungibility, right? Like if we are the only one in town that uses Schnorr signatures, we are identifiable. But if we use things that appear to be equal to any other signature, then we are in the clear. And I would say that this is a feature of this protocol, because ideally people will be able to choose which signatures they want to use, and this can be a flag, let's say, in the future wallet that we will create. And but yeah, you can do that.
Okay. So before I ask you the next question, I gotta play the ad for CryptoSteel. If you use the code BTCTKVR when you buy a CryptoSteel, you get 10% discount.
CryptoSteel is the original Bitcoin cold storage backup, and it's been innovating self-custody since 2013. Designed and manufactured in Europe from the finest and most resistant stainless steel, the CryptoSteel cassette and the CryptoSteel capsule are industry standards. These cold storage devices are made to resist house fires, extreme floods, and physical shocks. You can also use CryptoSteel to store your important passwords, BIP39 passphrase, or Nostr private keys. Buy your CryptoSteel today from CryptoSteel.com and use promo code BTCTKVR to get a 10% discount. CryptoSteel. Secure your Bitcoin like an OG.
Right. Now, let's get back to DMix. I have this question because usually privacy pools require participants to leave their coins in the pool and keep on mixing. It's the same with Whirlpool. It's the same with Wasabi right now. You need users to provide liquidity. And the benefit that they get is that their privacy is only going to get better with everyone else who joins in and participates in rounds. What is the incentive in DMix for users to keep their coins in this mixing system? And is there any sort of reward that you get when you become part of this, like in Join Market, where you can actually become a maker or a taker?
So this part of the pool thing is more of a research right now. So we don't have worked all the parts of financial incentives and things like that. Right now is like a black box. We assume there is somebody that has put money into this, and we are using that money. So I think it's a very good question, and incentives are very good, very interesting to understand. Very, very, very dangerous sometimes. We saw what happens in pools like in Binance chain and things like that. So right now, I don't know how we will actually structure that. We are in the research phase right now, and we are assuming somebody has put some money, some coins into this pool right now. But yeah, this is a very good question. We would like to incentivize in a good way, how people will put money, coins in this pool in order to, like, the more coins, the better. So yeah, if we can find a good way to incentivize that, it would be awesome.
Yeah, basically, to explain this to people who might not be technical, you need a crowd in which you can hide your coins. And you, I guess, if you're in a crowd and you're wearing the same clothes as everyone else, you get a very good degree of privacy if someone's looking from above or something like that. If there's surveillance or whatever, you want to look like everyone else. And it's the same with Bitcoins. So if there's a lot of liquidity in a privacy pool for DMix or for CoinJoins, you're going to get much better privacy because you can be anyone from that pool. There's this plausible deniability which increases with liquidity. And I guess the point of all of these mechanisms to improve your privacy isn't only to have a very smart mechanism, but also to have a lot of liquidity. Because if you have this anonymization process, which is very efficient, but there's not much liquidity, it's much easier to guess what happened there. But if there's a lot of liquidity and there are lots of participants, it increases the difficulty of figuring out, and it also increases the success rate of the anonymization process.
Yes, and but just let me stress the fact that the anonymity here, the pool here, will just work for the output decomposition problem that we mentioned before, and the DMix will work just using the funds of the people that want to mix these funds. And so the pool actually, I mean, you are right. If people put some money into this pool, they will be able to increase their privacy on the specific coins. But I would say that this is a good side effect of the pool and not the main thing of DMix. So yeah, you're perfectly right, and I think that you explained very well how pool can create privacy. But I just wanted to stress the fact that DMix is the other side, the part where people mix fund using true transactions, and the pool is just a facilitator and a privacy increasing part of DMix.
Also, maybe that you talked about this earlier, about 20 minutes ago, but I did not ask you a specific question about it. This concerns the so-called toxic change.
Yeah.
When you enter a CoinJoin with Whirlpool, with Samourai Wallet or Sparrow, you're going to get a separate wallet which receives the change that you're not supposed to touch if you want to get the most of your privacy. With Wasabi right now, the change also gets mixed, amounts up to 5,000 baby Bitcoins. That's what I call Satoshis because I'm a bits guy. But anyway, amounts up to 50 bits get mixed into the CoinJoin. So the threshold for dust is much lower, and there is this mathematical process which makes sure that you don't get toxic change.
Okay.
And how does it work with DMix? Is there any kind of change that goes back to your wallet?
So as mentioned before, there are two transactions. So if the first one is for coordination, you can as well use it also to remove all the toxic change that will happen after. So part of the first phase where I said, yeah, we people will exchange some information. Part of this information that they will exchange is how much funds, how many coins they want to exchange. And the basic idea is to create a greatest common divisor of these coins. So if we have Alice, Bob, and Carol, and Alice has 10 bitcoins, Carol has 5 bitcoins, Bob has 5 bitcoins, and Carol has 2.5 bitcoins, we basically have the greatest common divisor is 2.5. Okay. And by doing that, all the outputs at the end of the out DMix transaction, so the second one, will be equal to 2.5. So Alice will have to provide like 4 addresses, Bob will provide 2 addresses, and Carol has 1 address, exactly like you can see here. And you can see that in the first transaction, Alice will remove her toxic change during the coordination phase. So Alice, let's use the numbers in this image. Alice has 1 Bitcoin, Bob has half a Bitcoin, and Carol has 0.25 Bitcoin. And so we see that Alice only one input that has 1.66 bitcoins, and she can, let's say, clean this input by sending just 1 Bitcoin plus fees in the DMix transaction. And by doing that, when they will do the exact CoinJoin, so the auto DMix transaction, you can see that there is no possibility of toxic exchange because they basically created the output amount together in order to actually remove this thing. So this is why we don't have toxic output in the auto DMix transaction, because we basically cheat and remove that in the DMix one. And just let me just highlight one thing for more. If you want to go a little bit more technical, if we saw that there is a DM, which is the address of the DMix of this DMix address, but because they are paid to script hash transactions and all transaction or all in DMix transaction are atomic. For this reason, all addresses will be different, and they are created in a deterministic way. So everybody in the pool, in the group of people, are able to compute the hash of the transaction, but the address will always be different. So unless the DMix goes straight, it works well until the end, and people spend this in DMix transaction in order to create the out DMix one, nobody will be able to see that a DMix is taking place, okay? And that is due to the nature of pay to script hash transactions that have always a different address if they have a different script. And the script is always different because transactions are time locked, but Alice must be able to redeem her funds in case somebody cheats in between the in DMix transaction and the out DMix transaction. Bob has to do the same. Exactly, this is the script: if n block, check lock time, verify, etc. And so you can see that we have HPKA, exactly, and HPKA is basically the hash of the public key of Alice, but Bob has a different public key, so it will be a different script, so it will be a different address. And so on blockchain, we have as many different addresses as many people using DMix at the same in the same instance of DMix. And this is, I think it's important because at that level, it's not possible for an external observer to think that there is a DMix in place. And after that, actually, you can see that a DMix has taken place. You can suspect that a DMix has been taken place because if everything goes well, and so you spend using the aggregated public key, the aggregated public key is equal for all participants, and because it's the public key created together, the aggregated public key. And so somebody can think that, yeah, maybe there are some people that use the same public key, but and we actually are studying that. So you can also think that this is just a case of address reuse. And so we are doing right now, we are working on studying how much address reuse there is on the blockchain. We suspect it's very low, the amount, but there may be, and it's always a plausible deniability thing. You can say, well, this is not a DMix. this is just address reuse. And so I think this is another thing that may be useful for people to be able to deny that this is a DMix.
Yeah, that's very cool. And something that I want to ask you is, DMix is decentralized, but is it trustless? Meaning that can you join a DMix by not knowing who the other participants are? Or do you have to trust that the participants are honest? Because in this process, I guess you can see what happens with the transaction, but the rest of the blockchain cannot. But it can be Sybil attacked or something with,
You're right.
I guess, chain analysis having some participants who basically collect data about every transaction, and that removes some of the privacy of the setup.
So you're perfectly right. Like, this is based on the anonymity set. Is privacy thanks to anonymity set. So the idea is that, well, what happens if we are 10 people, but 9 of them belong to chain analysis? So right now we have addresses that are exchanged in between parties, and they are plain text. So we actually recommend to people to do that with people they already know and trust. So it's not trustless per se right now. But one of the things we are working on is how to make this exchange of addresses more private, in the sense that we are using multi-party computation to exchange these addresses, which in practice means that people will exchange a polynomial, and at the end of the protocol they have a list of addresses, but they do not know which address belongs to whom. Okay. And so for this reason, even if other parties are malicious or something, they don't know which address is yours. Of course, if we are 80 people and 79 of them are chain analysis, you are screwed. But if we are 80 people and 78 of them are chain analysis, well, they just have 50% of possibility to dox you, right? And if they are 70 out of 80, they have just 10% of possibility, and things like that. So and I want to stress the fact that participating in a DMix requires funds, and it's not that easy to spawn many identities, because every identity has to have some funds in it. So especially for big amounts, like, I don't know, one Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoins, it will be very difficult to spawn 80 identities with 5 Bitcoin each, right? And so I want to stress the fact that creating identities with funds in it is costly. Of course, state level agency will be able to do things like that. They do it on Tor, so there will always be some risk. And this is why we think, like many others, it's one reason why many people in the privacy space recommend to do more than once, and the remixing we talked before. But yeah, it's a risk. It would be awesome to have some quantization about that, so know how much the risk is, because doing that, I mean, as far as I know, there is no some quantization, some number behind it, but I would be very happy to know, because if you know that, you can actually know how many people should be involved at minimum, or how many remixes you need in order to minimize this risk. But I would say that the risk is there, and I would say that this is actually a problem of every privacy method that ultimately relies on the anonymity set of some kind. And so, yeah.
Yes. Now let me play the ad for Dime, which is like Open Dime but cooler, and then I'm gonna ask you the next question.
Thanks.
Remember the paper wallet? Ah, yes, the good old days when you printed your Bitcoin private key on an offline computer? It was so fun, but not really easy and totally not secure. Today, we have Dime, a chip card that acts just like your good old paper wallet, but with all the modern security features and top-notch functionality. It turns your Bitcoin into a bearer asset, which you can easily trade in person. Thanks to NFC, you can use the Dime card with your smartphone. Creating a new pair of Bitcoin keys takes just 2 swipes. Check your balance in real time, create multiple key pairs. Whenever you want, you can reveal your Bitcoin wallet's private key with just a single click. The simple, uncluttered interface lets you quickly see if a key pair has been unsealed. Finally, the cold storage you've been looking for. Available now on Dime.io.
I think you said something very interesting there about not having a trustless service, but at the same time, I can see exchanges or some other actors that know each other and have a lot of liquidity running DMixes specifically because they know that they're going to get a high amount of anonymity. And I suppose DMix works better in a closed type of setting where only actors that you know are going to join it. Or am I wrong here?
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea, so I think I will steal your idea. And jokes aside,
If you get rich off of it, you can send a donation.
I will, of course. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Right now you are right. Like how technology in DMix is, how designed DMix is. You're perfectly right. A closed setting will be better, and exchanges are a potential customer of that. And you are perfectly right about that. We are working to make it also suitable for an open setting, so people download the app, click the button, but yeah, you are perfectly right in the sense that this is a possible angle that we should work on. And so again, as I said before, we will steal your idea.
Yeah, I think exchanges are entities that very much benefit from privacy. I believe that they have a lot of liquidity and they also don't want their competitors to know much about how much they own and what they're doing with their coins. I think that all of these bots, whale alert or something, are a nightmare for exchanges because whenever these types of signals come out, the traders are influenced by it and they can withdraw large amounts of money from the exchange and possibly bankrupt it. We saw what happened to FTX, and I'm not saying they did not deserve to go down. All I'm saying is that if there was less knowledge about their internal operation, they could survive for a few more months at least. So it's always interesting because obviously their operations are out there in the open. So you can see how much liquidity they have. Their wallets are marked on the public blockchain. You can see that they're, at least in Bitcoin, they have some of the biggest wallets and they mark them. But I'm pretty sure that they don't want everyone to know when they're doing some operations in the background. So from this point of view, I think that DMix is exactly what they need. So if you need like a marketer, hit me up. I'm gonna call some people and tell them about this. I think Liquid was pretty much a product that was being advertised to big traders and exchanges, but it did not manage to get traction.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea, especially after we have more like privacy also between parties. Like nobody knows which address we are using after. It will be better, but also right now it might have a privacy enhancing possibility. And you are right. Like if you use a DMix, you will be able to basically transfer funds to other addresses, masking it. So it's actually a very cool idea, in my opinion, to do that. And also it is a security thing because we do know that like many exchanges have addresses that are actually created using threshold signatures. And one way to you know, you have an aggregated key, public key, and you have your shares of the private key, right? But what happens if I lose my key? So the normal solution is to have like t out of n public keys, so like 3 out of 5. So if I lose my key, there are 4 other keys, and so we are still able to sign the transaction. But what happens if another party loses his key? So we have just 3 keys out of 3 possible bare minimum to sign the transaction. So one thing you can do without changing the public key and therefore the address is what's called the key reshuffle or key redistribution, where you can basically change your private key as long as everybody changes its own key, and you still will be able to sign the transactions maintaining the same public key, so the same address, but changing the key of the people, and also changing the people, probably, if you want. Maybe somebody goes out, somebody comes in, so you can change. The problem with that is that you are assuming that all other parties are deleting the old key. Like, what happens if I still maintain the key I had before and I sell it? Okay, so you are not, because you cannot prove deletion, you have this problem with key reshuffle. On the other hand, if you use DMix, you are perfectly secure that you have changed the key that own an address, and therefore also the people if you want, but without revealing or at least without masking somehow that you move the funds.
I want to ask you something which is maybe slightly connected to DMix. You mentioned that right now with Taproot, you don't need anything else for DMix to operate. But I was curious to know if there's any soft fork of the ones that are being proposed, like any prevout or covenants or whatever, that can improve what DMix is doing.
So never say never. To be honest, we didn't look much into them because we are more focused on solving the problems that I mentioned before. But you're right in the sense that maybe those problems may be somehow solved by looking at the new soft proposals of soft fork. So this is definitely something we will do more. But right now, I don't have a clear answer about that.
So you don't have any kind of opinion on these proposed soft forks? And what's your opinion on stuff like Drivechains? Did you have time to look into it?
I saw Drivechains like years ago, but I didn't study that very much because I saw that there is a lot of controversy in that. It was not very much liked. So I honestly, I didn't. I thought that the probability of being accepted was low, so I didn't look it into much.
I want to cause some controversy with this episode. So, what's your take on the whole Wasabi versus Samourai situation?
Oh,
Do you have any, like, you can be objective and say what you like and what you don't like about each side and how you think that DMix can improve on their setups?
Well, I would be honest when I say that our design is better in the sense that we remove the coordinator, and therefore there is no actual way to censor transactions. So yeah, by summarizing it, we are better. So I'm joking right now, but yeah, this is some difference that we have with respect to them.
I had this conversation last week with Yuval Kogman, who is the creator of Wabi-Sabi. And right now he's very resentful and is like, yeah, everything sucks. You should not touch it. It's not good enough. But I basically asked him, can you name a service that's out there available to all users that is actually better than Wasabi? And he was he blocked me after this. He was pretty upset that I asked him this question. But there are so many proposals, there are so many good ideas, but there are not too many of them that are accessible to the average user. Something that anyone can just double click, download, run it right now, and have the best, I guess, type of privacy that's available to the masses. Because obviously, I spoke with Thomas from Electrum, and he presented this lightning trick to get more on-chain privacy, and it's something that you can do with Electrum. And he also made a presentation about that, but it's a lot more clunky and more difficult for the average user to understand. So it's more of a power user feature. And right now, in the phase that it's being presented, DMix is still at a very academic level. So I think that it's very important to pay attention to how technical the average user is and understand the challenges in user experience.
I perfectly agree with you. And one of the first thing we are trying to do is making something that maybe has not the best privacy right now. Like I said, we have this problem at the beginning where people just send the address to other parties, so they have to actually trust the other parties somehow. But I think we will go with this solution at the beginning, but doing something that people can just click a button and do a DMix with people they know, and then we will solve this problem, or at least they go in parallel. But I very much agree with you, and usability is a big thing. Like, having a paper does not solve privacy because you don't have the wallet. And yeah, I very much agree with you. And I was speaking about privacy methods and solution. I was talking with Giacomo Zucco, and one beautiful idea he had was to find a way to categorize all the privacy proposals out there and find the actual primitive that are creating them. So basically, if you talk about DMix, well, it's actually some coordination plus a CoinJoin, right? Or a CoinJoin without a toxic output. If you talk about other things, they are basically a Chaumian CoinJoin. So one thing that it would be very interesting to have somehow would be some categorization of those things. And once you have that, you can actually study which part and which combination of primitives gives you the best, let's say, the best privacy. Like, you can't have best privacy because privacy is a free parts things. But there is amount hiding, there is unlinkability, there is untraceability. Those are three different things. But if you do have the primitives, you can say, well, this achieves unlinkability, this achieves amount hiding, etc., etc. So yeah, I agree with you. A wallet is needed, and actually also some more study is needed in order to know and understand how things are related and how they are similar or different.
I'm curious to know your opinion on Mercury Wallet and the whole CoinSwap idea using state chains, if you had any time to look into that.
So I wouldn't say I am an expert on that, but as far as I saw it, it's very interesting because you basically are transferring coins. I mean, you are transferring the ownership of coins off chain. And so no actual transaction is done on chain. This is a very interesting thing. And they are obtaining it basically by time locking the transactions. This is a very cool and interesting project that I like. And I would say that there is some kind of coordination still in that project. One way to decentralize that coordination would be awesome, but otherwise is an interesting thing because you have you don't move the money, you don't move the coins, and therefore you I mean, there's nothing more private than that because you are not moving the coins. So it's a very interesting idea. The problem with that is that everything is time locked, so you have a deadline for everything. So if you are the last person that is, let's say, receiving the coin, you have a deadline to spend it. Otherwise, the previous one that sent the transaction to you will be able to spend in your place because everybody has the key. In practice, I am doing a very big oversimplification, but the idea is that. And so, yes, this is and I was thinking about another way to achieve that. We talked about the key reshuffle thing before, and one way to achieve that would be being able to have some kind of proof that you don't have the old key. We do some kind of key reshuffle, and I prove to you that I don't have the key anymore. And that would be awesome, especially for the fact that nobody has created those kind of proof yet. But yeah, this would be another way to achieve the state chain, in my opinion. And you don't have any kind of coordination because you can do that like peer-to-peer, and you don't have deadlines in that case. So it would have many advantages. But yeah, we lack this proof.
Yeah, I think Nicholas Gregory, who is the lead developer of the project, said something similar, that he needs about 6 more months to work into it.
Okay.
He's going to find out a way to make it less relying on the pools and coordination from the wallet. It's pretty cool, but at the same time, the only issue that I see with it is that it scales poorly. It's kind of costly and slow.
Okay.
But I can see the benefits in it because, as you said, the coins are not moving.
Yeah.
Let me play the last ad for the show, and then I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
Shop and Bit is the online store where you can buy anything with your Bitcoin. Choose between more than 800,000 products, book flights and hotels, and order everything else through the concierge service. With Shop and Bit, you can buy your weekly groceries, get the latest iPhone, upgrade your computer, buy something sexy for your new girlfriend, book a trip to El Salvador through the travel hacking service, and also grab a copy of the latest Bitcoin Takeover magazine to read in the airplane. Everything is integrated with a familiar shopping experience that doesn't track you and deletes your data after the order gets completed. You also get a 3% discount if you pay in Bitcoin. Try Shop and Bit today and use promo code BTCTKVR for a €5 discount on your first order.
I think an important question at this point is, what does it take for DMix to move from this academic level to something that's friendly to the consumer? And how much funding do you think developing a wallet that's commodified and easy to use for anyone, how much money would it take for you to do that?
So, yeah, I would say that the most important thing would be like having I think that like 6 months of full-time work on that would be able to produce something that is commoditized, as you said, from a technological standpoint. I don't have a timeline from the adoption part. Like I really don't know how much marketing, how much time it's needed in order for people to be aware and use it. But from a technical point of view, an MVP can be done pretty if people are able to work full time. Right now, I am the researcher and developer of this project, and but I would say that in 6 months I would be able to create something usable. And from the finding point of view, I don't know, in the sense that I don't know how much marketing costs right now. So I would need a marketer. And but then after that, I would say like normal income for Italy would be okay.
I guess you're being modest. You're not asking for a Bitcoin developer fee. You're just asking for normal income in Italy. But I'm pretty sure that there are some people who have a lot of Bitcoin and listen to the show. And that's why I decided to ask you this question, which might
Oh,
not be the most comfortable from a financial point of view. But I know what it's like to be in academia and to be underfunded, because that's the story that you get everywhere. And your proposal is something that can benefit some very wealthy people. So it would be a pity, I guess, if it never got funded to flourish, to get developed to its fullest potential. It might not be the perfect proposal for Bitcoin privacy. It might have some potential attack vectors, but at the same time, I think that it has some benefits that you don't find in other privacy wallets right now. And it's something that can benefit also the average user.
I completely agree with you, and I also thanks for the question. Actually, it was an interesting exercise, and yeah, if we get funding, it would be very awesome for me to actually work on it full time. And I would add that you are perfectly right when you say that it may have some problems as a solution, but I would also say that it has been said before by many people more capable than me, but maybe the best solution would be to actually use many things at the same time. So something gives you something and you then use another thing, etc. So another thing is the composability of this solution. And yeah, so that was for answering the part that may have some problem. And so yes, again, thanks for the question.
Yeah, that was actually, so I guess you foreshadowed my next question, because I was gonna ask you if DMix can be used in conjunction with something else that's already out there, like a CoinJoin or a CoinSwap or some other type of service, or you think that it's the solution to end all of these, I guess, improvisations that you use. Because this is a very unpopular opinion, I guess, but until we get confidential transactions in Bitcoin or something, like, I don't know if it's gonna be Mimble Wimble or whatever, something that actually scales. But until we get that type of privacy, we're gonna have to improvise and use tricks and add plausible deniability. And it's not gonna be entirely fungible, but it's gonna be more fungible.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for example, the Elements project and also Liquid, which is the base of Liquid, has confidential transactions. And I would say that they are basically testing right now. There is a part of Bitcoin developers which is testing these things. And yeah, I agree with you in the sense that right now we are using what we have in order to achieve the best possible unlinkability that we can have, the best fungibility that we can have. But yeah, you require some kind of soft or hard fork in order to have confidential transactions. And we cannot do that at the application level. This must be at the protocol level. And so, yeah, I would just say that, as I said, privacy is a multidimensional problem. And it's difficult to say if something has more privacy or less privacy if we use privacy as a whole. It may be it may be well to compare on a specific thing. So this thing has more unlinkability properties than this thing. But other than that, is it's on the other hand, it's very it's normal to say that it's easy to say if something has more privacy than something others on an intuitive level. And so yeah, this is my answer about privacy. But I would say that on the other hand, it's actually difficult to compare the privacy we have, like, I don't know, with Monero with respect to Bitcoin. I know that many people say, yeah, Monero has more privacy, but this is not entirely true, right? Like, their way to make things has created problems with EAA, like basically you do timing attack on the ring signature that they have, and you can you don't have perfect fungibility there, right? And that's why they are actually doing, I don't know the details, but they are basically making a big change into Seraphis because this ring signature thing has some problems too. So this is why it's actually difficult to compare privacy and exactly.
Yeah, I think Monero has better confidentiality, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
if it has privacy because it has, I guess it hides the amounts, but at the same time it has lower liquidity and it has fewer participants. And if, as you said, you can do something to delink the ring signatures, you can figure out a lot by doing that. And I think they're gonna get rid of the ring signatures in a hard fork. I guess to their credit, they have a culture where they don't care much about the financial properties or the inflation, whatever. They mostly care about making transactions as private as possible and not allowing ASICs to dominate the mining. So basically, I guess the point of Monero is for you to, if you're in a situation where you cannot use money, you can mine some coins with your computer in a few days and then you can send a payment. And that's kind of the value proposition that I see. But it's very different philosophically and monetarily from Bitcoin. And I guess we can learn from Monero to see what goes right and what goes wrong. I'm not like the other guys on Twitter who say, no, this should not exist. It's a shitcoin. I think that even the worst of shitcoins gives us a lesson about what happens and the fact that not everything happens on a test network means that we see what happens with real life incentives and the average user making use of these technologies because I guess you didn't get to that point, but as a developer, you come up with some solutions, and you assume that people are gonna use them in a certain way, and then you discover that someone who downloads the app on a phone or a MacBook or whatever, they're going to use it in different ways and figure out bugs that you could not even think about because that's how it works. The expectations are different from the reality. But I guess I got sidetracked a bit. What I want to ask you is what kind of programming language are you going to use in DMix?
So we have a demo online. There is a video on my YouTube channel, and this is written in Python because it was faster to write in Python. But right now, I am rewriting it in Rust because the part with threshold signature is we are using audited libraries to this part because it's the most cryptographic intensive part. So we prefer to use something that has been audited, and so that's why. But and then we are working on Rust because that thing is written in Rust, and because we know that Rust is more secure on many levels, and so this was an incentive to rewrite things in Rust. And so in the end, we will write at least the back end of it in Rust. And I didn't think about how to write the front end yet, but the back end is Rust. And of course, it will be attached to Bitcoin Core. At least right now, we are attaching it to Bitcoin Core. So you will have your Bitcoin Core on one side and this wallet on the other. But because we are working on it, we plan to have the everything fitting together.
So you're saying that DMix is going to work with your Bitcoin Core full node on the same machine.
It would be certainly one way to use it. The problem with that is that you cannot use it on your phone, for example, because you cannot have your Bitcoin Core on your phone. But we will always leave this possibility because you should be able to decide to which node you want to attach to. But on the other hand, we plan to at least incorporate some light wallet into it, so you just download the app and use it. But for a more secure and private experience, you obviously should be able to attach to another to another full node of your or that you own, right? So this possibility must be there. And but for easiness of use, you will also have a light client into it.
Yeah, I guess the last, and it's not the last, I'm going to ask you another one after this, but a very important question is how can the listeners help? If there's anyone who cares about this being developed, how can they help? Spread the word, donate, or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. We will be in Riga. So of course, spreading the word. Of course, we are creating a site and a donation page, so donation will be always accepted. Criticism is always accepted. As I said before, this started as an academic project, and right now it wants to go to real life. And academic is something, real life is another thing. So, as I said before, I am a researcher, and I may have overlooked something that the real people need. So, of course, criticism is a big component that may make DMix better. And so, yes, I would say things like that. Yeah.
You said something important. You're going to be part of my privacy panel at Baltic Honey Badger.
Yeah.
There's going to be you. There's going to be Barbàra from Wasabi. There's going to be Kristaps from Joy Market. And who else? I got to check. It's going to be so much fun to moderate this. Not sure if they published the schedule on the website. No, they haven't. It's still private. So I'm not sure if it was fine for me to reveal this, but it's not much of a secret.
Yeah. But so yeah, in Riga we will be. I hope I will be in Riga also the other days. So if people want to reach out to me, I would be very happy. I can provide you my Telegram handler if you want. So if people want to reach out, they can also go to my site fadibarbara.it, and there they can find the other contacts. So again, as I said before, spread the word. Criticism is much needed, especially on the usability part or the cryptographic part. I don't believe in security through obscurity. I think nobody believes that anymore. But yeah, those are the needed thing to create this project.
Yeah, so about the panel, so the information is not public yet, but there's going to be not Nopara, but Max Hilbrand, who is the CEO of Wasabi. There's going to be you, Andrew Camilleri, who is actually Cooks from BTC Pay. He was also on the show last year. And Kristaps Kaupe from Riga. He's actually the only local who's speaking at the conference. And I guess it's going to be a lot of fun to discuss. The topic is coin joins, but I guess you're going to also talk about the issue of coin joins and why you have this proposal.
Yeah, I will shield the mix a little.
I'm going to let you do that. And I'm also going to let the others comment on the stuff because I'm pretty sure that right now they're going to pay more attention to your paper and look for stuff on which they can, I guess, not necessarily criticize, but find some trade-offs that maybe their CoinJoin service does not have. There's no one from Samourai, but if they're in the audience, we'll give them a microphone. And what else did I want to mention? How can people follow you? Like, where are you present? Where can you reply to questions and stuff about DMix?
So, as I said, they can find me if they want to message me privately. They can find me on Telegram. and the nickname is Fadi Barbara. And I am also on Twitter if they want. The handle is at Disnotion, like DISNOCEN. And so yeah, these are basically where I am. I have also a YouTube channel that sometimes I publish something there, but under Fadi Barbara. So this is it.
Yeah, I think for now I ran out of questions. We're gonna talk more during the panel at Baltic Honey Badger. Unfortunately, it's not going to be filmed as far as I know, but if you're coming there and you're paying a ticket, it's gonna be on the Cypherpunk stage on the first day, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And I would very much like to thank you, Fadi. I've also solved the mystery because I wasn't sure if it's Barbàra or Barbàra, but now I know.
Yeah. It's
And
Barbàra.
thank you very much for your time. I've learned a lot today, and I hope that this interview proves to be useful for you. People are gonna message you and stuff.
I want to thank you that this was very fun. As you said before at the beginning, this was my first podcast, so I'm very happy to have done that. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. So thank you very much. It was fun.
I'm always happy when I discover new stuff and especially research because it's super useful and it flies under the radar. There's a lot of there is this guy Kale who's working on Kashu, which is on Lightning some sort of Chaumian mixing system.
Yeah.
But he basically said that he subscribed to an academic publishing list on papers that get published about Bitcoin. And he said that in the last few months, he was very disappointed in the stuff that was published. Most of it concerns trading and concerns stuff that's very poorly understood and poorly written. I guess we are still, I know it's kind of cliche to say, but we're still in the early days, at least in terms of mainstream understanding. And it's very hard to find something that's worthwhile, that's worth reading in this sea of papers that keeps on getting published. So I'm super happy that I discovered you, and I'm grateful for John Galt, who is the one who introduced us, basically, made the connection. And yeah, I'll see you in Riga.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, John Galt, also, and see you in Riga.